It's business. It's business time. Hang tight, we're gonna get into the business right here in a couple minutes. Baby, baby. It's business. It's business time. All right, we are here with season 2 of It's Business Time, and we have a great guest this week. We're joined by Greg Lundmark from Mercifix and D24K Productions. Greg, thank you so much for joining the podcast, the series here. You are the antithesis of the type of guest I like to have on this show. You have so many different ventures that are all weaving into a kind of similar thread. We've done everything from music, talk small business. We've even gotten into some patent situations, trademark situations. So we really have a good one here for you. Greg, again, thank you so much for joining and being a part of the series.
Absolutely. Glad to be here. Thanks. Thank you, Aaron, for coming up here and doing this here in the warehouse.
So a lot of you guys from Delaware know Greg from his bands and his stuff down there, but we are actually up here on Germantown Ave. We decided to shoot on location here at D24K Productions. Worked for schedules. Also works for a cool backdrop. We have all these different stands and shells and backline situations. Sorry, let me say that on the mic. All these backline situations here as well. And we're going to get a little bit more into what D24K does here in a minute. But considering Greg's background and all the stuff we have to get to, I like to start in a simpler place, right?
That sounds fun.
Which is a lot of what you were doing before this stuff. How long have you been doing music for? What were you doing before you moved into the production things? Because I know you have a little bit of a corporate background as well. Yeah. And a common question I ask people is kind of like, what was that like aha moment that made you shift from the stable, steady corporate world into a small business entrepreneur world? So I'm going to give you your pick. Let's either get started on where some of your music background, what's got you rolling there.
Sure.
Or, we can...
It all kind of leads, they all intertwine, so they kind of lead up, one leads into the other. So essentially, my music background started when I was probably, from what I remember, 3 years old or so. Mm-hmm. So my father has a classical music degree from Peabody Conservatory.
Gotcha.
And he went there in probably, I think, the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
My dad went there, and he got his performance degree in classical guitar from Peabody. And a lot of my dad's friends from the conservatory play in orchestras and all over the world, and they're do very well in the classical world. So at the tender age of 3, my father put a violin in my hands, and wanted me to learn how to play the violin. So that went on for a few years, and then I remember getting into some type of tiff with my violin instructor, which ended in her saying, "Do you want to take violin lessons anymore?" And I told her, "No, I don't." And said, 6 years old, just no, because, learning that word.
Right.
So moving on from there, I still was required to play some type of classical instrument. Yeah. So I moved to piano, and I played piano for probably, I want to say, I think probably 6-7 years, something like that. And then, and I was doing, junior recitals and things like that for people, and it was fine. But I think I was tired of doing classical. Maybe I just wanted to do my own thing, or maybe I just wanted to do more contemporary music, or, might have had just something. It might have had some things to do with, my relationship with my father, or whatever it was. But
so at this time, he was going around the world doing like concerts and things like that.
No. My father never got to be like a professional musician.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But all his friends from the conservatory became famous musicians.
Gotcha.
A guy he went to school with, his name was David Starobin. David Starobin is now known as one of the most influential classical guitar players of all time.
Right.
Wow. Big deal guys.
Yeah.
So about that time, after about 6 or 7 years of piano, I took a break from music, and I just, I was playing sports, I was 12 years old, you know what I mean? Already did 8 years of classical training of some kind by 12 or something. And
right.
So I took a break from it, and then came back to it kind of on my own. I wanted to learn how to play bass guitar. So, because I enjoyed listening to like the Commodores and Kool and the Gang and Rick James and stuff like that. Nice. So I started off playing bass and then decided that I was going to learn how to play guitar. I still had a lot of roots in, rock music and heavy metal music and things like that. And my brother showed me Black Sabbath and Metallica, and I had a cassette tape of Van Halen 1, you know what I mean, that I remember putting in my stereo and being like, how's he doing that thing on Eruption? Like, what's he doing? You know? So that kind of sparked my interest in learning guitar. And so, and then by the time I was 17 or 18, I started like writing music on my own and started performing with, different people and trying to jam and find like a band together and, things like that. So, now, kind of leading into like how that's affected my work life, I, started off in my late teens and early 20s just kind of taking whatever job I could find, whether it was something standard in like a restaurant or grocery stores and, everything from being, everything from being a janitor to like being a nanny for 2 kids on the side. And then like, I think at one point I had like 4 jobs at once. In like my early 20s, and it was not a fun time, but hey, I did it because I wanted the money and I wanted to be able to take the money and invest it into my music gear. And so over time, building that, it led me to when I was like 24. I had been in school for like human services and social work and things like that, but I got the opportunity to take a business. Or take over a business for somebody, which we paid them money and things like that. But
what was that business?
I was a martial arts teacher for 4 years.
Okay. Well, I knew you were in martial arts. I didn't realize that.
I had a school in Wilmington for 4 years.
Very cool.
So that was kind of like a big turning point, because it was like, okay, I've been in school for this long, like I should be going for my degree, or I should be then working my way into that industry. And then it was just like, okay, turn on a dime and just own a business at 24 years old.
What was
what
the
I mean?
specific discipline? I'm just
Wing Chun Kung Fu.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, Wing Chun
I'm
Kung
just
Fu.
curious. I've always been an aficionado,
Cool.
More of a hobbyist than direct, but that's very, very cool. So you were an instructor. You were managing the day-to-day too, like scheduling, booking, marketing, all that type of stuff, and then
all
also
that stuff.
teaching the lessons.
Yes.
Yeah. So the entrepreneurial bug started early.
It started early, yeah.
And when you run something of that level too, it can make your head spin, right? There's just so many little things that slip through the cracks. Were you the only one in the studio, or were there other instructors?
It was really just me. I had people that I could call upon to like take over my classes for a week if I just, wanted to like take a vacation or something like that, or just needed a break. But for the most part, it was just
so
me.
It was you. You were HR. You were accounting. You were that's a lot. And I mean, we always like pass the dojos in like strip malls and things like that. You always see them, and I think a lot of people who have never been in that world like have this like image, right, that Hollywood is kind of portrayed,
right?
But it's like one of the themes here in this podcast is to kind of share some of the pieces of entrepreneurship and running a small business, hopefully for those who haven't done it or looking to do it, to get a little bit of insight. Now, I want to get into the music. I want to get into D24K Productions and the meat of the conversation. But before we move on from the dojo, can you tell us, like, was there a moment, and maybe it was the end of that chapter, but was there a moment that was like incredibly difficult that you didn't think you were gonna overcome?
So I remember when I'm not going to name names and things like that, but essentially I was in a situation where I bought this business from somebody, and they had this program that was essentially running the whole and supporting the business financially.
Okay, like
it was like
a
it was a before and after school program for kids.
Okay, gotcha.
And
we did talk about that.
Yes, and so what happened was, it turned out that they didn't have a lot of the licensing from the state that was required for them to run this program.
Right.
So about 3 months after I actually took over the business full time, the state actually came in and shut down that program on me.
Gotcha.
And I lost 30 kids or something like that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So that was a big learning experience, and also a very difficult one.
Yeah.
And that was that was the moment that was just, the rug was pulled out under my feet. I was completely overwhelmed and I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so so there was that. But I ran with it. I made lemonade out of lemons as much as I possibly could.
Right.
You know what I mean? And even had a lot of people tell me, like, we're surprised that you got this far considering everything that happened, Right. So I appreciated that, and it was a big life lesson in general.
For those listening, like was there when you bought the business, it was supposed to come with licenses. Yeah. And was there like something that you would have done differently? Like was there when you look back on that chapter, because you were young, right? I often say, I failed more times than a lot of people have tried.
Sure.
Was there, because there may be business owners out there who are thinking about buying, a turnkey business, right? And I always warn them, no business is turnkey. No matter how much they say you're going to walk right into money, there's a reason they're selling it. There's a reason they're leaving. And it's not because everything runs smoothly without management.
Right.
Was there something like in the purchase of that business or during your time running it that if you could go back, you could change? Because hopefully maybe there's someone listening.
Yeah, I would be really careful when you review the financials that they provide you to prove, the income that a business is actually bringing in, the revenue. And also don't show it to the guy that you're trying to get the loan from. So you have to, but don't ask for their advice. You know what I mean? Because ultimately they're just trying to get the loan from you. I feel like, you know what I mean? They'll just be like, "Oh, this looks great." You know what I mean? It's like, are you sure? Because
it feels like the lawyer type or the accountant type that says you need a lawyer and accountant, and you're kind of like, but that's your job, right? So of course you're going to pitch your job. But what if, in this case, maybe like a professional looking at it to sign off that if things go south, they're on the hook. Okay, gotcha.
Right. So it's one of those things where it's like, I think, talk to multiple people. Definitely make sure you go over with an accountant that has no interest in whether you take the business or not.
Yeah, exactly,
things like that, just so that someone can say.
Third party, if you will.
Yeah, definitely a third party. Don't talk to the guy that you're going to be signing off with the loan with about does this look good to you, kind of thing, because you have to show them that in general, but they're not going to be honest completely, I feel like, about whether they think this is legit or not, so
I had a small experience with that in buying a home where the person advising me to take out a loan equal to my home value was the same person making a commission on the home value price. Gotcha. And I explained to them very clearly, I want the smallest loan possible. And somewhere in that, they forgot what I wanted and decided, in order to get a bigger commission, to get me a bigger. So third parties are always valuable. Thankfully, I had a real estate agent, and my sister gave her a call, explained everything to her, and I'll just leave it as she was very disappointed in the people I was working with. But all right, so the dojo kind of goes south.
Yeah, so that goes south. I lick my wounds, go to work for Capital One, who I worked with for 5 years or so.
Gotcha.
Because the immediate response usually after you've been just flying by the seam of your pants, being self-employed for so long, trying to own your own business and you're responsible for everything, is let me just go get something
punch
safe.
My card.
Let me just go get something safe. You know what I mean? I want benefits and the 401k or the annuity or whatever it is, right? And so that began my career at Capital One Bank, and Capital One Bank was fine, you know what I mean? The job was okay, the culture was fine. It just I had a really hard time feeling like I belonged there, because a lot of people there are just, they're just there to punch in, do their job, punch out, go home.
And you have the entrepreneurial spirit in you too, which is like once you get that, it's like it's hard to get rid of it.
Yeah.
I will say real quick before we move on from Capital One, I do always recommend for entrepreneurs who are still planning and waiting, the corporate job it will teach you how successful businesses run.
Right.
It will show you their HR packets, their training programs, the way they use resources and manage clients. These are all skills that even though, I don't like to say soul crushing, but corporate jobs can be a little soul crushing. The education you get is very transferable back into the small business world.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, for sure. So, got in there, and it took me a while to even really feel like I even belonged there because I'm artistic, and I'm a very sensitive, feeling person.
Right,
so
right.
it's just, you know what I mean? So I'm just like kind of walking in there, always feeling a little like, are they really watching everything I say and do?
Yeah.
Like, and is this going to get in the way of me, like, possibly having like a promotion or like going to a new department or like, you know what I mean? So that whole, like, just the anxiety involved with it, and just, of course now with like HR and stuff, there's, certain, there's of course a lot of stuff that you can't say or do in the workplace. And some of those things are like stuff that you wouldn't even think of. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, and then it's like, you say, I remember I got reprimanded one time for, I can't remember what I said. I think I used the word slave in some sort of context when I was speaking to a coworker.
Right. Like you don't want to be a wage slave or something.
Yeah,
like
something like that. It was something along those lines. And then I remember being pulled to the side by someone from HR and told that I couldn't use the word slave. And I was like, maybe I might have even been talking about a something like computer related, like it's it's a slave to this monitor, like that kind of thing, something computer related. But either way, that kind of stuff, just like, I've got too much anxiety for that. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, I did Capital One for about 5 years, and then I got laid off. I was in, but I did work my way up into a specialty position. I was in operations for the IRA department, and then unfortunately they just decided to let us all go and close the IRA portfolio. Right. So
that is, you just kind of summed up. So on this series, I often ask people, what were you doing before the small business journey? And why did you leave, or what kind of caused that transition? Because that's always an aha moment. And you just hit on two big ones. One is the culture fit, right? It's sometimes very awkward to remind them you're there to do a job. You're not there to be like a perfect little employee, right? You're a human being who likes to make jokes or use whatever language they choose to use.
Sure.
And then of course the other one too is sometimes you can lose everything you've built, everything you've worked for, at the whim of shareholders, at the whim of. And when you're a small business owner, yes, it's very, very tough, but you do control your own destiny.
Right.
So Capital One wraps up. And now we're getting into the good stuff. If you've hung in this long, you're going to be rewarded for the good stuff.
Yeah. So I had been always, playing in bands and stuff like that, because I started with, originally we were called Trader, and that was back in, I started with them back in 2012, 2013. So, and that's how I had always had the band, and I had just been doing a lot of different shows and recordings, and next thing I know, it's like basically anybody came through Voltage Lounge, we were on the show. You know what I mean? Everyone from like DRI to Toxic Holocaust to Municipal Waste and Destruction and Havoc, and I'm shaking hands with guys like Matt Barlow of Iced Earth, and all kinds of stuff. And Trader did the damn thing for quite a while. We were doing really, really well.
Yeah.
Once the lockdown hit with 2020 and everything like that, that was a big like turning point, because then a lot of the venues and stuff that like were open and that we were playing at just closed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it became, and then like the venues that were still open, their whole business like strategy to keep themselves afloat had just shifted. So now they're like, well, we would do like your show with, we would usually do this show with, 3 bands or whatever it was and support the metal scene and all that stuff. But instead, we're going to move that up earlier now on a Saturday night so that we can do our dance party at 10. You know what I mean?
Right,
Things like
yeah.
that. So it's, so it shifted a lot, which makes it difficult a little bit for, for artists and bands to kind of get out there and keep playing, you know what I mean, and keep doing their thing. But so with them, for a long time, we just rebranded. We're called Mercifix now. Had a very good long thinking process, about it, just because it's hard to find names. It's hard to find names that aren't taken by other bands already. It's hard to find, stuff that's anything to help you stand out. You know what I mean? Because
URLs that haven't been scooped up,
right? All that stuff. So, I've been. So then now, I guess we've been now. We put out a demo, and we just got off tour with.
Yeah, I was going to ask about. Yeah.
Yeah. We just put out a demo, and we just got off tour with a group called Satan. They were one of the first new wave of British heavy metal groups from the early '80s.
Just straight Satan.
Satan. That's
wow,
it.
they own some IP with that one.
Yeah. So it was a great time. Started in Rhode Island, worked our way across the country all the way up to Detroit and Indianapolis and Wisconsin area, and then we went up into Canada. We played Toronto and Montreal and came back home. Yeah. So kind of to intertwine like how my band has also affected my job life and career. Well, I was looking for work after I was unemployed from Capital One. I was unemployed for about 6 months or so. And then I was talking to my guitar player because he worked for this company. And I said, hey, do they need any help or anything like that? Like I'll push cases. I'll just, I'll be what I call a schlepper. You know what I mean? I'll just schlep stuff around, whatever they need, And he was like, oh yeah. He was like, by the time it gets warm, we'll need help. I'll put your name in. I was like, okay, cool. So he hit me up and said, hey, start coming in. I think it was April of 2020. I think it was April 2023. Yeah. And so I came in here. I met Ross and Frank and started working and just, doing whatever they need me to do. And then
here at D24K Productions, by the way, I want to make sure to give them a little shout out.
Shout out D24K Productions. Yes. And then they just kind of asked me like, hey, you feel like sticking around for the year? And I was like, okay, cool. I'll, why not? I'll stick around for the rest of the year. Cool. So, just, and then I enjoyed it. I loved it. And then I thought back and I was like, I remember being 18 years old, looking up on the stage at like the Tweeter Center. And then and then in between bands, I see these guys dressed in all black, kind of walking around the stage, grabbing things, doing this, doing that. And I thought to myself, there's somebody that pays these guys to do that.
Right.
And how can I shake hands with them? Because that seems like just such a cool job to be in.
Yeah.
And then it took me God knows how many years to actually finally be that guy. You know what I mean? Right. But it's a really interesting job. I like the behind the scenes stuff that makes a show work and makes and helps a band perform their art and perform their music. So and turns out I love it. I just wish I got into it earlier.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, there's a saying like the riches are in the niches.
Yeah.
Or the riches are in the niches, depending on whether or not you're French. No, but I experienced that a lot in a couple different spaces where, the things that people see and are excited about need a ton of ops. They need a ton of people in the background to make those things happen. And that's something that I follow a lot of like small business podcasts and things like that. And it's a lot of those, like, people forget that they're for every business that, let's say, is making a ton of money in wedding photography, right? Well, there's people who manufacture lenses. There's people who manufacture the straps that go on the cameras, right? And all these tiny little pieces that go into this thing that everyone else is aware of. And I love the way you kind of phrased it, whereas it's like I'd go to shows and I'd see these guys wearing all black and being like, somebody's got to pay them, right? And now that, you and I have both been on the side where you have to negotiate the pay
Right.
for these guys.
Right.
So before we go too far career-wise, let's go back. How many people are at D24K Productions? Like, how many employees would you say, part-time, full-time, roughly?
I think if I was gonna, I think altogether, I think we have a few shop guys, and then I think we have like 30. I think we have 30 freelancers.
30. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, something like that. 37 freelancers. I'm not 100% sure, honestly. So
yeah, no.
But we have a long list of guys. Yeah,
from the ops side of things, right? Normally, there's like 3 to 5, like the core, right? And then you said 30 freelancers, so techs. Funny side story, I'm not going to go down, but 10 years ago, I was one of the techs who helped roll cables and things like that for D24K as well. And, so it was an organic, you kind of started helping, and that grew into a more substantial role, being kind of, well, we're in the warehouse right now. And I can tell just looking around, there's so much gear, inventory management, organizing, cleaning, wrapping. There's so many little things that can be done here. And again, shout out to D24K for letting us on location here to film. I mean, just behind us is a drummer's dream right here. You have more gear than the average drummer is going to go through in their life. So you guys, in addition to doing like full sound stage, all that, I know Ross had mentioned you guys are doing backlines as well. Can you talk a little bit about like the scope of services you guys offer here?
Sure. I tell people literally we are just about the point where it's just anything and everything. I mean, so everything from backlining for bands and DJs to doing lights for the show, doing audio for the show, to building the stage for the show. And then also, or, it could be like a big performance event like that. Or if you just want to do like a talk, you know what I mean? And you want to have a big projector screen and you want to have, be able to control the projector and do the slides. And then you want to have a lavalier mic so you can talk and do it, for a big conference or something like that. We do all of that.
Yeah, lavalier. That was the word I was looking for earlier.
Yes.
I was like, the mic thing on the clip.
Yes. So, we do all of that. So, we've done stuff for, huge just conferences where they're talking about, new business models, or they're talking about, developments in technology or science.
Yeah.
Or we just do bands and DJs and just,
that's what I was going to say.
Scope-wise, it's everything.
Everything from small venues, small private events, all the way up to like the hotel ballrooms with, $1 million guest speakers.
Yes.
All that type of stuff.
Yeah.
What was, just as a little like pluck something out here, what was an event over the last, say year that really jumped out at you as you're standing there thinking like, man, I love my job. This is the coolest thing.
I got to do, this was a lot of fun. I got to do, do backline. I was backline tech for a guy called Robert Randolph.
I know Robert Randolph.
You know Robert Randolph, yes. So incredible. I got to backline tech for him.
Yeah.
Wow. That was a lot of fun. It was down in Lewis Beach, Delaware. He was playing right outside
cool.
the grain on the rocks there. They have that big field off to the side, and so anyway, I brought all the backline down for him, and I
that was a grain, you said?
Yeah. Down Lewis. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he was there.
That was this last year.
Yeah, this past summer.
Oh wow! Shout out to Grain H2O.
On the rocks. It's called
on the rocks.
Grain on the Rocks is the Lewis one. Yeah. So I go down there and I'm just like, okay, I'm going to be backlining for this Robert Randolph guy. Sorry, Redford.
Yeah,
Robert Redford.
That's a natural mistake.
Sorry,
he's a legend.
Yes.
Both are legends.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go down and I'm going to, backline for this Robert Randolph guy. Okay, cool. And then and I didn't, and it was such a great experience because, first of all, it was just I was doing the job that I enjoy to do, which is
Right.
I get to just load stuff onto the stage. I get to put together the drum set and put together the bass rig and put together the guitar amps and make sure everything's working right. And that was a great experience on its own. But then honestly, like him and his band, they were very grateful for what I did.
Yeah.
You know, they were actually very cool guys. And, I shook hands with the drummer and I said, hey, how is everything? And he was like, oh, everything's great, man. Thank you. Really. He was like, I appreciate you doing it, And same thing with the bass player, same thing with the guitarist and Robert himself, you know what I mean? They were very appreciative and very nice,
That's cool.
Yeah. That was a cool experience. At the end of the night, the drummer left his sample pad on the kit.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing it. I was like, oh, shoot, I want to make sure he doesn't, forget this. And so I pick it up and I see Robert standing over there and I walk up to him and I'm just like, hey, I was like, Mr. Randolph, this is your drummer's sample pad. And he was like, man, I don't even know why he needs this. He was like, he should just play the drums.
Hold on. Let's move. We're creeping up a little bit.
Creeping up, okay.
Why he even needs this?
Yeah, he was like, man, why does he even need this? He should just play the drums, you know? So I was like, okay, he showed some personality, he was cool.
That was a decent Robert Randolph impression too.
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah.
That's neat.
Yeah, it was cool, man. It was a lot of fun. I met this, and then I met a local musician who was just down there, and I guess he got to go up there and play a song or something like that with him.
Do you remember who that was?
His name was Christian. I can't remember his last name.
Gotcha.
I have him in my phone, but I remember it was Christian.
No, I just it's a Delaware. If it's a Delaware local, it doesn't hurt to give a shout out. But.
Yeah. He's a Philly guy. His name was Christian. Nice guy.
Gotcha.
But he got to. I guess his dad knew Robert. And so we got to go up and do a song with him, and then of course it's Delaware, so I ended up running into a couple people that I know. I think it was I ran into Steve Maselli was down there, and he said, and I was up there testing the bass rig, you know what I mean. So he sees me up on the stage, and Steve said that at first he was like, is Greg playing bass for Robert Randolph? And I was like, it's like, oh, that's where he's been. No, sorry, man. I'm still riding in the back of a van with my metal band. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Metal. Yeah.
That's what I'm doing, man. But it was cool. And then I got to talk to Steve a little bit and just say hi and catch up a little bit. So it's just that's one out of many experiences where it's like,
well, I just wanted for those who don't know that world, I just wanted like a little like snippet of how there's a lot of kind of thankless hours in production.
Oh yeah.
A lot of polishing and scrubbing and replacing and coiling and fixing and all this stuff.
Right.
That and in every business, it's the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of it is not glamorous. It's not exciting, but the 20% that is glamorous.
Yeah.
Like every baker, they wake up at 5 a.m. and they're putting together ingredients. They're covered. They're just going crazy. But then when they walk out with that tray, that's all we see. It's these beautiful cupcakes.
Right.
But you forget about the 80% of the time it took to get to those cupcakes. Right. And I think a lot of times people see the entertainment industry from the outside. And they see, the show. Wow, this is incredible. Wow, it must be an amazing job. And those moments do kind of tie it together. Meeting national acts, meeting really legendary people. I mean, that's a story you'll remember to the day you die.
Sure, of course.
And yeah, very, very cool there. I do have one little bit of Delaware trivia here. This came up recently, and Delaware, everybody knows, is the first state, but Lewis is actually the first city in the first state. So you mentioned Lewis, Delaware, and that just reminded me. We were recently doing some Delaware trivia, and
nice.
That's the first city in all of America, Lewis, Delaware, right there. So
wow,
and or at least ratified, at least.
Right.
And I don't know, the nerd in me, I just learned that stat. I'd been a Delaware guy my whole life. I did not know that. But yeah, that's really, really cool. And it's also cool to kind of see the breadth. We're sitting here in a warehouse in Philly, and y'all load up the gear, driving all the way down to Lewis, Delaware, setting up for Robert Randolph, getting to test his gear, meet him, all that type of stuff. It's really neat to kind of to see the scope of a business like this, and how many different nooks and crannies you can get into when you're in production.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that was a hot summer day. It was like,
Yeah.
that was one of the days where I went into my they got me a hotel, thank goodness, for the night. So that was one of the days that I just went into the hotel and just like peeled the clothes off of me because it was just, oh my gosh.
Well, that's a good
horrible.
segue into challenging stuff. What would you say is one of the most challenging parts about sound and stage production? I mean, I can certainly list some, but from your perspective, my lower back might not be the same as your lower back. No,
Sure, no, I get it. Yeah.
What would you say, like, for those who are thinking about a world like this, and I think equipment rental in general, it doesn't have to be for sound. Sometimes it can be, sometimes it can be photo booths. Sometimes it can be, the equipment rental is when you go to look at some of the most successful small businesses to just jump in tomorrow, startup costs, things like that. Equipment rental is a big one, right?
Yeah.
Because oftentimes your startup costs can be a photo booth or can be one PA system or something.
Right.
So kind of when you answer this question, try and think of it as from more of an equipment rental perspective than specifically the sound, but at the same time, obviously answer with whichever thing came to mind first.
So I think personally that one of the hardest parts of this business is quick turnarounds.
Yeah.
So when I say that, what I mean is this: there was a week in October where I probably worked 60 to 70 hours, and a lot of it was. And so on top of just doing the shop work, which I do, I also had to go to a gig to help with like a strike or something, or do a setup or something. Pretty much just about every day after.
Yeah, strike is breaking everything down.
Yeah, setup or striking it, breaking it down. So, quick turnarounds are the hardest part of it because by the time we hit the weekend, that was when my quick turnaround started.
Right.
I had to work. I worked Friday night, I think, until about 11 o'clock or 12 or so. I had to be back in the shop at 5:15 in the morning.
Right. Wow.
So it's like, for me at least, what that meant was I'm probably going to get 3 hours of sleep or so.
Yeah.
So 3 hours of sleep from Friday into Saturday, then working from 5:15 a.m.
Yeah.
Then from working from 5:15 a.m. Saturday until 1 a.m. Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole day, and then having to be right back in the shop again at like 5 or 6 o'clock Sunday morning.
Right.
So at that point, I've gotten 7 hours of sleep in 48 hours.
Right.
And it's just that, and then I have to come right back Monday morning and be back here in the shop so that quick turnarounds, late nights, early mornings. That's the real hard part of this job.
I can definitely see that, kind of the batching or like the burst work. Yeah. I'll occasionally talk to people who do seasonal work, right? And the upsides of seasonal is when you're off season, you have a lot of free time.
Right.
But when you're on season, you are working two jobs you're working three jobs in this little compact area, whether it's salmon fishing, right? Yeah. These guys get paid tons of money to go out for 3 months of the year. They get a whole year's salary, but those 3 months are the most grueling 3 months on the planet.
Right.
And in the case of sound and gear rental, or sound stage gear, lights, all the stuff, it kind of is seasonal, but weekly, right? Like you don't probably do a whole lot on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but then all of a sudden Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday can just hit.
Typically, no, actually, I mean, come Monday, we're super busy because not only are we trying to get ready for the following weekend, but also everything comes back from the previous weekend. Right. So now it's like basically, especially I think that week when we must have 10 different productions that weekend.
Gear goes
so it's
in,
like
gear goes out.
Exactly. So basically over the weekend we've got 10 productions worth of gear out.
Wow.
So now it all comes back and it all has to be accounted for. And it all has to be put back in our inventory, put back where it is, or thrown directly into the next project, depending on what the need is, So so it doesn't stop. There's no like break even on Monday, like nothing. It's
and you mentioned inventory. I've seen a lot of businesses like this one be incredibly successful at a certain volume, but as soon as they start to scale up, right, inventory management, like turnaround, like you said, you can only be so many places so many times.
Yeah.
Like as soon as they start to scale beyond the 3 to 5 employees, beyond, you know, a half a mil to a mil, it just, the profits start to plummet because gear doesn't get, you know, recorded right, or gets lost, or gets broken. All these things start to like get too spread out.
Right.
And that's oftentimes when people talk about like the equipment rental game, it's like it's easy to get into, but it's very, very hard to scale. Whereas like software, for example, very, very hard to get into, but scales super well. You just copy and paste.
Right.
And so, you know, that's something to consider, you know, and sorry to cut you.
No.
But something to consider as you think about like growing small businesses and jumping in is I do think it's like the things that are hard to get into are that way. But once you get into them, it becomes easy because you're the only competition, or you've learned how to scale. And then on the other end, the things that are easy to get into, there's too much competition, you know?
Right.
What was it? I was thinking of a business very recently where it was really easy to get into. It was RV parks. You simply buy a piece of land and you invest, you know, a couple, and I shouldn't say simple, but, you know, 50 to 100K, and putting all the utilities in, you know, the gas lines, the water lines, all that. And once you're there, your costs are pretty much done. And now you just rent these spots, and all you have to do is a little bit of maintenance on the lines and things like that. And I was like, wow, that does sound really, you get to own land, pretty low startup costs, at least, you know, business wise. But as I'm hearing this guy describe it, the host says, so how many parks do you own? He said, well, I'm a part owner in 9 different parks. And he goes, wow, so that's great. Why don't you have more? And he goes, well, that's what I'm working on right now. We hope to be at 18 by the end of the year. So even as I'm picturing how fun it would be to be an RV park manager and owner, I got to compete with this guy now. He's got 18 parks.
Right.
You know, he's got the maintenance people, all, you know, like,
Yeah.
So it's like, even though it might be an easy business to start, is like, now I got to compete with everyone else who has easy business. Anyway, so I kind of got a little sidetracked there, but
That's okay.
In this space, it really, I've seen a lot of people start and fail in sound and stage. And it's a very small group of people. I mean, D24K has been around at least 20 years now, hasn't it?
I know it's at least 15.
Yeah, I was going to say, I worked for the gigs I did with them was 2012, 2013, So yeah, we're talking at least 15, 16 years. So, I mean, that's definitely something people overlook when you're able to do it for that long. You know, you guys are doing it right, because this business is big on referrals.
Yeah.
And when you treat musicians wrong, guess who hears about it? Everyone.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, it's very, very impressive what you guys have going here. The scale. You know, I want to keep these digestible, so I do want to wrap up here soon in a minute. But before we go, if you don't mind touching a little bit more on, you told me a little bit of a story when we were chatting earlier, a little bit more on how both of your businesses, right? So on one hand, you own a brand, you own the you know, the IP, the songs, you went through a little bit of a patent journey. On one hand, you own everything over here. On the other, you're working with another small business, and they kind of work together. Do you mind talking a little bit about the synergy of how? Because oftentimes people own like a restaurant and then also a catering business and a food truck,
Right.
and a cooking course, and all the businesses kind of work together.
Right.
Do you mind talking a little bit about how those all kind of fit together?
Sure, absolutely. So having the band that I have, you know, and working here, they have been very synergetic, and it's been very helpful having this as my job, and also doing it because not only does it help me understand things about behind the scenes doing sound and the production world in general, but so what happens then is when my band is on the road, right, we're going into a venue where we don't know who the heck we're working with. We don't know who the sound guy is. We don't know who's running what. Right. But that makes us way easier to work with for the venue because we understand the behind the scenes.
Right.
So we understand load in and load out times. We understand, we understand sound checks. We understand how different microphones work. We understand what the audio guy's doing or the sound man's going to be doing when he tells us, hey, I want to hear this. I want to hear this. I want to hear this. So, and even to the point where we're helpful even more so.
Right.
So it makes my band look that much better because at least the sound guy is going to say, you guys are so great to work with.
Yeah.
One, because we understand his job.
Yeah.
So that definitely helps the venue. The venue's going to like that, and so is the sound guy. One.
Yeah.
Two, it also helps because if I ever need something, if I'm ever like in dire straits, and if I need something like, for example, when my band got the opportunity to open for Overkill last year, we weren't allowed to fly our banner in the venue because it wasn't fireproofed or fire resistant.
Right. Okay.
So the only way for us to hang our banner was we would have to get like pipe and drape to put it up. So who did I know that had pipe and drape? The people here at my job.
Right.
So I decided to come over here real quick, and I just went up to Frank and I was like, hey, Frank, listen, not a lot of time to explain, but they can't fly our banner at the show. Can I just get some pipe and drape, please?
Classic.
And Frank was just like, dude, just go grab it. That was it, Didn't give me a hassle. Didn't ask me what I was taking. Just said, hey, just go take what you need.
Yeah.
That's it. You know what I mean? Because at the time, it wasn't really going out or doing anything. So he was just like, just go ahead. Just take what you need, man. It's fine. And that's been very helpful too. You know what I mean? Like on this past tour that we did, we needed a guitar boat. Guess who I borrowed it from? D24K.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
If I needed like in-ears or if I needed something like that, it's nice being in a band and having this as my job so that I have access to things that I could possibly need and be able to call my boss sometimes and just be like, hey, how much is it for me to rent a cymbal? Or how much is it for me to rent, those really good in-ear monitors with the drivers and stuff? What does it take for me to do that? So having that accessibility is very good. And also, this is where I learned how to make cabling.
Yeah, right, which is a big money saver when you get into it.
Yeah, this is where I learned how to make cabling, and that's how I've ended up making cables for Francie from the Fusaholics, and making cables for Randy Waters of Harvey Road.
Randy just posted.
You know what I mean?
Recently.
Like, yeah, man.
Randy
So
plays bass with me. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. For Harvey Road and Full Carbon Get Up, just. I'm able to do that stuff now.
Yeah.
So it all kind of intertwines together and allows me to just be a fully functioning music package. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, yeah.
I'm a big fan of Synergy simply because like everything you do has different angles, and until you do those other angles, you don't really understand them. Like, so I'm a vocalist. A microphone is our instrument, and I've worked on the soundboard back in the day, right? But I never really thought about like the technique of how to approach the microphone until I did vocals for a while, and then went back to the soundboard, and I was doing vocals for someone else, and I'm watching them, and I'm like, man, like how do I explain to him how the different frequencies hit, and like not to put their hand in certain ways and all this stuff. And the fact is just like if you're on guitar, I recommend being a guitar tech for someone. If you're on microphone, I recommend trying to run a soundboard one or two nights. It's like because like you just said, is like being on both sides really helps understanding the other side of it. And I think most small business owners know that it's like there are endless amounts of tasks. And to be pretty good at all of them is what you need to be a small business owner. Yeah. But when you are working, when you put the hours in, right, that's how you become expert. That's the mastery that kind of lowers the anxiety. But
right,
man.
Yeah, and it just, for example, like what I was talking about earlier with being able to work with venues and soundmen a lot better. It's like, know, if we're sitting there and if he DIs the bass, right, but he doesn't hit the ground button, like,
right,
we're on stage, we're going to notice that and just be like, oh, just hit the ground button real quick so that the sound guy doesn't have to walk from his soundboard again, so that we can keep the sound check going so we can get on time. Yeah. You know what I mean? Make sure things sound good. It all helps. Like
the only downside is the more you know about the sound when you do get a difficult situation. And I side eye the camera. When you do get a difficult situation, you're like, point of order. It makes it a little bit harder to, you got to take deep breaths, and you got to remember everybody's on a learning journey, and be kind. But yeah, it does make it. It's like when musicians listen to music, they don't hear the music, they hear the tempo, the chords. They hear,
Yeah. I got you. I mean, I remember one time we were at a venue and we were on tour probably, a couple years ago, and this guy was like, there was a guy who was kind of the understudy of the main sound guy at the venue, right? But this understudy, nice guy and all, came up and was like, I have no idea what I'm doing right now. You know what I mean? And kind of was like, and so he was like, do you guys mind kind of directing me a little bit with this? And I was like, dude, I said, you got 2 A1 sound guys in this band.
Right.
There. You know what I mean? Like, and I was like, trust me, we'll make sure. I said, just go up and let him know what's up. And it was like, I think he was having a problem with like mic placement and miking the drums and miking all that stuff, because that's what he was supposed to do. But I guess he was pretty green, and maybe the sound guy at the venue wasn't directing him very well. So he seemed really like nervous, and we were just like, dude, we got you.
Well, something that just blows my mind. I've done well over 1,000 live event shows in my life, and what blows my mind is every single one is still, there's a unique challenge. Yeah. There's a shape of the room. There's a way that the stage or the cables are set up, or there's an XLR port that is wiggle. There's so many opportunities. Let's call them opportunities to reach in, figure something out, and like that's kind of what I love about Sound and Stage is the problem solving that goes in every time. Like as long as you still have, as long as you look, show start or doors are at 8, right, and it's 7:59. No, you don't want problem solving right then. But around 6:30, something goes wrong, and it's like, wow, we can figure this out. Let's use this cable in this way, and with some gaff tape, we can hang this, and you can kind of like figure it out. And then when the show goes off without a hitch, you're sitting there, and that sense of pride that you overcame a challenge is immense. It's a lot of fun.
I had a scenario akin to that, akin to everything you're saying there. This guy, I remember it was, I'm not going to say who the artist was, but I remember the guy had he had he was using one of our amps on stage. I'm Backline tech, using one of our amps on stage, and also had one of their own amps, and apparently they had their own pedal to switch between the 2 amps.
Oh, okay.
And they wanted to mic both, and they wanted to just switch between it to see which one they liked more. Right?
Yeah, wow, like that's like the fanciest channel switcher of all time.
Yeah, it just so their input just went here, and then it split into both amps.
Wow.
One into one and one to the other, and then they just wanted to be able to switch between the amps to see which one they liked better, or for which song, or like this or that, right?
That's cool.
So I'm like, okay, that's interesting, sure. And I was like, well,
cool.
so I said, okay, where is said pedal? You know what I mean, that they're going to use here. Well, I took a look at it, and I start hooking it up, and didn't pay much attention to it, just put it together, and then all of a sudden I noticed that there's a lot of noise coming from one of the amps, and I said, where's that coming from? And I took a look, and the guy, one of his techs comes up, he's like, oh, it must be your amp, man. Your amp's got, I'm like, well, no. I'm like, we test these before they go out.
Right.
And it wasn't making noise before. So, I mean, listen, if it is, then, I mean, things happen. But I'm a little skeptical here. You know what I mean? I kind of want to mess around with this. So it turned out that this switcher pedal they had, it had a 1/4-inch jack, but it was missing the nut to keep it in place. So what was happening was when you put the input in, when you put the cable in there, it was wiggling around and touching different metal parts, causing noise to come out of the amp. So I had to basically go down the chain and show him like, hey, dude, it's the pedal. Sorry to say. And then I was like, you see how it's missing the nut that keeps this thing in place, and that's why it's. And he looked at me and said, that's so. This person. Right. You know what I mean?
And then you pull out the roll of black electrical tape, spin it a couple times.
That's right.
Well,
That's
Greg,
right.
man, I honestly I could talk to you for hours. Like the scene is there's so many shows, so many different stories. It's super fun to chop it up with somebody who's on tour, working with this type of level of gear. Like, I don't know if you can tell at home, I've done a lot of these. This is definitely like my happy place, being around all this gear, talking about music, soundstage,
Yeah.
everything. So this has been a lot of fun. Before I let you go, I want to make sure everyone knows how to find Mercifix.
Sure.
And can I put a website or best place to find them? Right
Sure.
up here?
Literally, our Instagram handle is just Mercifix. Hello, search engine optimization. Awesome,
Yeah.
right?
MER.
MERCIFIX. Okay,
I
check.
figured it was an IX.
Yep.
But just double checking.
Yep. Check us out on Instagram, all social media platforms. Look up our Bandcamp. It's bandcamp.com/Mercifix. Yep. Just check us out. And,
Nice.
Yeah.
And then for sound and stage, we got D24K Productions.
D24K
Again, I'll throw that
Productions.
up here one more time.
Yeah, man.
And thank you so much for joining. This has been awesome. You've helped me in a lot of behind the scenes ways too, and it's always fun to have a brother in the scene. Greg, thank you again for
Absolutely.
joining. Greg Lundmark from Mercifix and D24K Productions. That does it for this episode of It's Business Time, and we will see y'all next time
For part 2.
for part 2. Right?
It's business.